Hello, everyone. Well, I'm sorry, but I couldn't hear my own introduction because I was preparing a few things. My name is Bruno, as you see, and I usually work as a freelance professional for those two companies there. Newa, which is a creative studio, and Clea, which provides tools for online monitoring. So, what I'm going to tell you about is technology. Philip Young gave us an amazing introduction on what is happening online and why we should take care of it as public relations professionals. And indeed, everybody tells us that the web changed everything. But what was that change exactly? First, we need to know how technology changed. And to do that, I figured out I should show you these two photos. Now, the first one is easy to see. It's a hard drive. It's 10 megabytes. And that big box that they're taking from the airplane, that's a photo from 1956, and that's a 5 megabyte hard drive. Okay, now, look at that hard drive and just think, these little things have 16 gigabytes, 32 or 64 gigabytes. That is how much technology has changed. It can now fit in the palm of my hand, and I don't need to take it out of a plane with a forklift. So, what else has changed? Two laptops. The first one is Apple's first attempt at a MacBook. It turned out pretty well considering the technology that they had available, and later on, they were able to create the iBook. A few weeks ago, we saw the birth of the new MacBook Air, which is as thin as a book. So that's how much technology has changed, not only in storage, but also in the capacity to process information. And so, over the years, we have increased storage, made computers faster, and we created protocols so that machines can talk with each other. And most of all, we made it easier to use. There is a new area of communication, which is usability and user experience. It is the kind of thing that helps us put things into perspective of the user. Let's think, for example, let's take the case of the police department again. Let's imagine that the police department wants to reach as many people as possible. Their website can display all sorts of information, but it will be useless if one of the people trying to access that information is visually impaired. If the website is not ready for text-only browsers, it becomes useless to a public organization. So, over the years, we slowly began developing the web. We don't really know what happened. We know that we began developing a set of technologies that led us to this amazing thing that we can describe as a set of technologies made to communicate with each other. It can be a cell phone, it can be a computer, it can be a satellite, it can be anything else from a simple game box to a PlayStation 3. And so, what is the web made of? At this point, I would like to steal a bit from David Phillips and Philip Young's book, Online PR, and tell you about the 4 things that I believe make up the internet. The first one is platforms. But what is a platform? Well, a platform can be a mobile phone. It is anything that you use to access the web, the information online. But it's also channels. Facebook, Twitter, email, web browsing, everything is a channel. And if we look at an iPhone, every application that we install is in some way a channel or a tool for communication. And we use those channels depending on the purpose and depending on the content. I'm going to stop here for a bit and tell you what is my definition of content. Because everybody says that content and context are kings and queens. But what is content? Okay, so I thought about it, and one of the things that I came to realize was content can be, let's take the letters of the alphabet. Every single letter is a piece of data. And that data is the smallest possible symbol without a possible interpretation, because a letter A is just a letter A. A B is just a B. But information is data that is grouped in such a way that it can be given meaning. For example, if we take several letters and we build a word such as love, now that is a word that is actually filled with meaning. And if we build something like a word meaning relationship, and if we take those two words and we build a whole sentence, that whole sentence will become information. It will become information, and content is that information applied to a context. Think of it as a speech. Think of it as a work of literature, anything else. But the only idea that I want you to take away from here is that, yes, we access content through a number of channels. Whether it is our mobile phones or computers, it doesn't matter. It matters that the information is there, we want to access it, we want to talk with our loved ones, and so we do it as if it was nothing to do with public relations. But as Philip Young showed us, it is about relationships, and therefore it is about PR. And it's also a matter of context. What is context? That's me in the photo, but on a completely different context. What I was doing was, I was at a photo walk with a couple of friends, and it's a different context altogether, because I'm not thinking about public relations. I'm not thinking about the web. I'm thinking about, I'm trying to make this photo, and I want it to look pretty, and I want it to be beautiful. How do I take this photo? Let's imagine that for some reason I have a small doubt. I can simply pick up my cell phone and I can calculate what's the lens speed that I should use for a given situation. So in a context where I normally wouldn't use the web, I can now use it. So people play different roles in society, and context is when and why we access information. But this action alone is not enough. If we want to access information, we need to access information for a purpose. So a context and the access of information in a given context, as always and always will have a purpose to help us make decisions, and that is the true definition of good content. So why do we invest so much on technology and on the web? It's about productivity. It's about exchange of information. It's about communication and cooperation most of all. And of course, it is about relationships. Yes, we go on YouTube and we look at 1 million or so videos that mean nothing to us, but they are fun. And we share them with those people closest to us, those that we love. So, relationships does play a big role on the web. And what are the challenges for public relations? I wrote a few down, but I think that the challenges for public relations are much more. For example, we do need to reply in real time. It doesn't have to be on Twitter or Facebook. It can be on the web or in some other channel that we build. Because when we're basically turning a simple Twitter profile into a representation of the Manchester Police Department, we're actually turning a simple channel into an effective and efficient communication instrument. And that's what we as public relations practitioners do. We take things that wouldn't mean much in an online context to anyone, and we make them into communication instruments. But how do we solve the riddle of all these challenges? How do we turn data into information and content? From my perspective, the reason for this is quite simple. If we take information and it doesn't result in a guiding of our actions or a guiding of our decisions, then that information is useless. So, we can analyze value systems. This is actually a live case study. Shift.pt is one of my favorite clients, and it's a simple pro bono work that I do. It's a conference, and we had a problem. We knew what the conference was about. We could talk among ourselves and explain it to ourselves, and yes, this is what the conference is about. But once we tried to communicate to the outside world, that's when the problem started. And so, what we did was, we looked at all the mentions of the conference online, and we ran a latent semantic analysis on all the texts that we were able to find. And yes, I'm positive that we found all the text possible in the last 30 days when we ran this analysis. And what we found out was that people were describing the conference in a slightly different way than we used to. So we took the corporate vision that we had envisioned for the conference, and we forgot all about it. We took the corporate values, and we forgot all about them. What we did was, we looked at the result of this analysis, and we took these values, these words, as the main concepts to power the conference. And it worked quite well, because the reasoning for this is, whether we want it or not, our choice of words when describing a company are in fact our description of the values that we believe that company actually has, as opposite to the corporate values that the company is trying to say that it has.